The commander's words hung heavy in the air. Your mission is to locate the source of the anomalies in the Yen system. We believe a powerful weapon is hidden there, something that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. Captain Lisra exchanged a glance with her second-in-command, Rykos. A mythical weapon. It sounded like something out of the ancient legends. But orders were orders. Understood, Commander, Lisra replied. We'll depart immediately. As they exited the briefing room, Rykos turned to her. Do you really think there's a weapon out there? I don't know, Lisra admitted. But we have our orders. Assemble the crew. Within the hour, the ISV Intrepid launched from Orbital Base 1, disappearing into the void of space. Their destination, the Yen system, a remote cluster of planets on the fringes of explored space. For days, they traveled through the eternal night, the only illumination coming from distant stars. The crew went about their duties, monitoring systems, running drills, studying the limited data they had on their objective. Finally, after a week of travel, they arrived at the coordinates. Lisra stood on the bridge, staring out the viewport at the unassuming yellow star and its collection of orbiting worlds. Anything on sensors? She asked. Nothing unusual, the officer at the scanning station reported. Although, there are some odd energy readings coming from the fourth planet. Bring us in for a closer look, Lisra ordered. Nice and easy. As they approached, a collective gasp rippled through the bridge. The fourth planet was a vibrant blue and green jewel amid a sea of stars, white clouds swirling across its surface. It looked remarkably like. It can't be, Rykos breathed. It looks just like home, Lisra finished. Before the cataclysm. Their own world had once been a paradise, teeming with life. But that was before the Great War, before the weapons that poisoned the biosphere and turned the planet into a barely habitable husk. To see an unspoiled world like this was like peering into the distant past. Captain, I'm picking up signs of an advanced civilization on the surface, the sensor officer called out, breaking the spell. Energy signatures, artificial structures. And something else. The officer adjusted the sensors, brow furrowed in confusion. I don't understand these readings. It's like there's a tear in spacetime itself, localized on the planet. Some kind of gateway or wormhole, maybe. But the energy levels are like nothing I've ever seen. Lisra processed this news, mind racing. An alien civilization, a spacetime anomaly, the rumored weapon, what was the connection? We need to investigate, she decided. Rykos, ready a landing party. We're going down there. As the shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Lisra couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental. The answers they sought were down there on that impossible world. Answers that could change the course of history. The shuttle settled onto a flat plain, a carpet of green stretching out in all directions. In the distance, gleaming metal spires rose up from the forest, angular and alien against the natural landscape. Atmospheric readings are good, Rykos reported, checking his handheld scanner. Breathable air, no pathogens or contaminants detected. It's safe. Lisra nodded and unsealed the hatch, stepping out onto the soft loamy soil, breathing in the air of an unravaged earth. It was a moment she knew she would remember forever. Captain. The voice of her security chief, Talos, snapped her out of her reverie. He was pointing at a nearby hilltop. We've got company. Lisra followed his gaze and froze, scarcely believing her eyes. There, cresting the hill, was a creature out of myth. It walked on two legs and had two arms, but the resemblance to her own people ended there. It was much taller, easily 8 feet, with pale skin and a shock of dark hair on its head. It wore clothing, some kind of form-fitting garment, and in its hands it carried a long black object. A weapon. As it approached, Lisra signaled her team to hold their positions. No sudden moves. This first contact could be the most important moment in the history of her species. The creature stopped a few dozen paces away, regarding them with piercing blue eyes. Lisra stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show she was unarmed. "We come in peace," she said, hoping her universal translator was functioning. "We are explorers from another world, seeking to learn and make contact with other civilizations." The creature tilted its head, as if listening. Then, to Lisra's shock, it spoke in perfect galactic common. "Welcome to Earth," it said, its voice deep and resonant. "We've been expecting you." Lisra stared at the creature in shock. It spoke their language. And it had been expecting them? 1,000 questions raced through her mind. The being seemed to sense her confusion. It smiled, a strangely human expression. "I am Ambassador Zahn of the United Earth Federation. We detected your ship as soon as you entered the system. Please, come with me. We have much to discuss." Lisra hesitated for only a moment before nodding to her team. They would proceed, but cautiously. She had no idea what to make of this United Earth Federation, or the being that claimed to represent it. Ambassador Zahn led them towards the distant city, the metal towers growing larger as they approached. Up close, Lisra could see that the structures were breathtakingly advanced, all sleek lines and shimmering surfaces. Vehicles zipped through the air between the buildings, their anti-gravity engines humming softly. "Impressive, isn't it?" Zahn said, noting her odd expression. "We've come a long way in the last few centuries." Centuries? Just how long had this civilization been here? And how had they advanced so far, so fast? They entered the largest of the towers, a soaring cathedral of glass and steel. Inside, humans bustled about, some pausing to stare curiously at the alien visitors. Lisra felt like an exhibit in a zoo. Zahn ushered them into a large chamber dominated by a circular table. "Please, be seated." Lisra and her team took their places, still on edge. Other humans filed in, taking seats around the table. Lisra noted that they all wore similar clothing to Zahn, form-fitting suits emblazoned with a strange curved emblem. "Let me get right to the point," Zahn said, leaning forward. "We know why you're here. You seek the weapon." Lisra's heart pounded. So it was true. The weapon was real. "What do you know of it?" Zahn smiled enigmatically. "More than you could possibly imagine. The weapon, as you call it, is our greatest achievement and our greatest curse. It is the key to our power, and the reason your own world lies in ruins." Lisra shot to her feet. "What are you talking about? How could you possibly know about the cataclysm?" Zahn finished. "We know, because we were there. The war that destroyed your civilization. It was fought with our technology." Lisra's mind reeled. This couldn't be possible, and yet, it explained so much. The sudden leap in weapons technology just before the war. The anomalous energy readings. The humans' inexplicable knowledge. "I don't understand," she said, sinking back into her seat. "How?" Zahn sighed heavily, suddenly looking very old and very tired. "It was a mistake. One we've regretted for eons. In our hubris, we thought we could control the flow of time and space itself. We developed a device that could open gateways to other realities, alternate versions of our own world." He gestured to the room around them. "This city. It's not from this earth. We brought it here, through the gateway. Along with all our knowledge, our technology, and our weapons." Lisra's mind was spinning. Alternate realities. Gateways through time and space. It was like something out of a fever dream. "But what does this have to do with my world?" she asked, dreading the answer. "In one of those other realities, we made contact with your people," Zahn explained. "We thought we were helping. We gave you our technology, shared our science. But we were naive. We didn't understand the consequences." He leaned back in his chair, eyes haunted. "You weren't ready. The advances were too sudden, too disruptive. Your societies couldn't adapt. Tensions rose, old hatreds resurfaced. And then, war. With weapons more devastating than any in your history. The cataclysm. Lisra felt numb. All this time, they had thought it was their own fault. Their own failures that had led to the downfall of their civilization. But it had been these humans all along, meddling with forces they didn't understand. Why are you telling us this? Rykos asked, speaking up for the first time. Why now? Zahn spread his hands. Because we want to make things right. We've learned from our mistakes. We no longer use the gateways or share our technology recklessly. But for your people, the damage has already been done. He leaned forward, his expression intense. But there is a way to undo it. The weapon you seek. It's not a weapon at all. It's a key. A key to the gateway, and to your salvation. Lisra's heart raced. A chance to save her world. To undo the cataclysm. It seemed too good to be true. What must we do? She asked, scarcely daring to hope. Zahn smiled. You must go back. Back to the moment it all began. Back to the first contact between our peoples. And you must stop it from happening. He stood, his gaze sweeping over all of them. You have a chance to rewrite history. To save your world and countless others. But it won't be easy. The gateway is volatile, unpredictable. And there are those who will try to stop you. Lisra stood as well, her resolve hardening. This was it. The moment she had been training for her entire life, even if she hadn't known it. We're ready, she said, speaking for all of them. Just show us the way. Zahn nodded, pride and sorrow mingling in his eyes. Then let the mission begin. May the stars guide you, and may you find the strength to do what must be done. He led them out of the chamber, to where an uncertain future awaited. A future where anything was possible. A future where they held the fate of worlds in their hands. The chamber Zahn led them to was unlike anything Lisra had ever seen. A massive metal ring, easily 100 feet across, dominated the space. It hummed with barely restrained power, the air around it shimmering like a heat haze. The gateway, Zahn announced, his voice reverent. Our greatest creation and our greatest mistake. Engineers in the same uniform as Zahn swarmed around the ring, tapping at control panels and adjusting settings. One of them, a woman with short cropped hair, approached Zahn and murmured something in his ear. Is it ready? Lisra asked, unable to hide her impatience. Every moment they delayed was another moment her world suffered. Zahn nodded. We've input the coordinates for the temporal incursion. The gateway will open a portal to your world, to the exact moment of first contact. He turned to face them, his expression grave. But you must understand the risks. Temporal mechanics are notoriously fickle. There's no guarantee you'll arrive at the precise moment we've targeted. You could overshoot by days, months, even years. We understand, Lisra said, though in truth, the concept of time travel made her head spin. We're ready. Zahn handed her a small device, a crystalline cube that pulsed with inner light. This is the key. When the time comes, you'll know how to use it. Lisra took the cube, feeling its weight in her hand. So much power in such a small package. Zahn stepped back, nodding to the engineers. Activate the gateway. With a deep, resonant hum, the ring came to life. The empty space within it seemed to ripple and distort, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a cast stone. Then, with a blinding flash, a portal snapped into existence, a window into another world, another time. Through the shimmering veil, Lisra could see a familiar landscape. The rolling hills and silver-leaved forests of her homeworld, untouched by the ravages of war. Tears pricked at her eyes. To see it whole and unspoiled again. Go now, Zahn urged. While the portal is stable. Remember, you must prevent the contact at all costs. The fate of your world depends on it. Lisra nodded, steeling herself. She turned to her team. This is it. The mission we've trained for our whole lives. I know I'm asking a lot of you. But if we succeed, we'll be saving billions of lives. Raikos, ever loyal, laid a hand on her shoulder. We're with you, Captain. To whatever end. One by one, they stepped through the portal, the shimmering surface parting like water to let them pass. Lisra went last, pausing at the threshold to look back at Zahn and the other humans. Thank you, she said, hoping they understood the depth of her gratitude. For giving us this chance. Then she stepped through, and the world dissolved into light. She emerged on the other side, blinking in the sudden brightness of a sun she hadn't seen in decades. The air was sweet and clean, the breeze gentle on her skin. For a moment, she could almost forget her mission, lost in the sheer joy of being home. But the moment passed, and reality reasserted itself. They had a job to do. Fan out, she ordered, falling back into the familiar role of commander. Scout the area. If you see any sign of the humans, report back immediately. Do not engage. Her team dispersed into the trees, moving with the practiced efficiency of elite soldiers. Lisra herself struck out towards a nearby rise, hoping to get a better view of the surrounding terrain. As she crested the hill, her breath caught in her throat. There, nestled in the valley below, was a sight she had only seen in historical archives. The citadel, the ancient seat of her people's government, glittered in the sunlight. Its spires and domes were whole and unblemished, not yet reduced to rubble by orbital bombardment. The sight brought tears to her eyes. They had done it. They had returned to the time before the war, before the cataclysm. Now they just had to ensure. Lisra's calm crackled to life, startling her out of her reverie. Captain, we've got a situation. It was Raikos, his voice tense. Humans have been spotted in the forest, moving towards the citadel. They're armed. Lisra's heart sank. So it was happening, just as Zahn had said. The first contact that would lead to the downfall of her civilization. Converge on my position, she ordered. We'll intercept them before they reach the city. She raced down the hill, her mind whirling with possibilities. Could they reason with the humans? Convince them to turn back? Or would they have to resort to force? She found her team crouched at the edge of the tree-line, watching the human party approach. There were a dozen of them, clad in sleek black armor and carrying weapons that glinted in the sun. They moved with the fluid grace of trained soldiers. Hold your fire, Lisra commanded, though every instinct screamed at her to attack. Let me talk to them. Steeling herself, she stepped out from the trees, her hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. The humans saw her immediately, their weapons snapping up to train on her. Stop right there, their leader barked, his voice harsh and unyielding. Identify yourself. I am Captain Lisra of the ISV Intrepid, she said, keeping her voice calm and even. We come in peace. The human leader scoffed. A likely story. You're trespassing on Earth territory. By order of the United Earth Federation, you are hereby under arrest. Lisra's mind raced. Earth territory. The United Earth Federation. None of this made sense. Unless. With a chill, she realized the truth. They hadn't gone back far enough. This wasn't the first contact, it was a later incursion, after relations had already soured. The humans saw them as a threat. She had to salvage this, fast. There's been a misunderstanding, she said, taking a cautious step forward. We don't mean you any harm. We're here to prevent a terrible mistake, to stop a war before it begins. The human leader's eyes narrowed. The only mistake here is yours, alien. You should never have come to Earth. He made a sharp gesture, and the humans opened fire. Searing beams of plasma screamed through the air, scorching the ground where Lisra had been standing a moment before. She dove to the side, rolling into the cover of the trees. "Return fire," she yelled, and her team unleashed a barrage of their own. The quiet of the forest erupted into the chaos of battle, the air thick with smoke and the stench of ozone. Lisra ducked and weaved through the trees, her plasma rifle spitting blue fire. She took down 2 humans, their armor no match for the superheated bolts, but there were too many. They were outgunned and outmatched. A cry of pain off to her left, Rykos had taken a hit, his leg a smoking ruin. Lisra rushed to his side, dragging him into the shelter of a fallen log. "We have to fall back," he gasped through gritted teeth. "We can't win this." Lisra knew he was right. This wasn't their fight, not yet. They had to escape, to regroup and figure out what had gone wrong. She reached for the key, the device Zahn had given her. It pulsed in her hand, attuned to her very thoughts. She focused on the gateway, on the chamber they had left behind in the future. The key grew warm, then hot, the air around it shimmering with building power. "Grab on," she yelled to her team. "We're leaving." With a blinding flash, the key discharged its energy. A portal snapped into existence, a swirling vortex of light and color. Without hesitation, Lisra leaped through, dragging Rykos with her. Her team followed close behind, plasma bolts sizzling through the air in their wake. The portal snapped shut, and silence descended on the forest once more. The humans stared at the spot where the aliens had vanished, their weapons still smoking. "What the hell was that?" one of them muttered, kicking at the scorched earth. "Some kind of new weapon?" The leader shook his head. "I don't know. But I intend to find out." Far away and yet so very close, Lisra and her team tumbled out of the gateway into the familiar chamber. They were battered, bloodied, but alive. Zahn was there waiting for them, his face grave. "What happened?" he demanded. "Did you succeed?" Lisra shook her head, despair welling up inside her. "No. We were too late. The humans, they were already hostile towards us. We couldn't stop the war." She looked up at Zahn, tears in her eyes. "We failed." But Zahn didn't look surprised, or disappointed. If anything, he looked almost relieved. "No, Captain," he said softly. "You didn't fail. Everything happened exactly as it was meant to." Lisra stared at him, uncomprehending. "What do you mean?" "We didn't change anything." "But don't you see?" Zahn said, a strange light in his eyes. "You weren't meant to change the past. You were meant to ensure it." He gestured to the gateway, to the key still clutched in Lisra's hand. "The war, the cataclysm, they were always meant to happen. They were a part of our history, and yours. But now, thanks to you, we know why." Lisra shook her head, trying to wrap her mind around what he was saying. "I don't understand. Why send us back at all, then?" Zahn smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Because sometimes, Captain, the only way to move forward is to understand where we've been. The mistakes we've made, the tragedies we've endured, they shape us, make us who we are." He laid a hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle. "Your world, your people, they will rise from the ashes. They will rebuild, stronger and wiser than before. And it will be because of you, and the sacrifices you've made." Lisra looked at her team, at their weary, battered faces. They had come so far, risked so much, and in the end, it had all been for this. Not to change the past, but to accept it. It was a heavy burden, but one she knew they could bear. Because they were together. And together, they could face anything. Even a future born from the ashes of tragedy. In the days that followed, Lisra and her team struggled to come to terms with what they had learned. The truth of their mission, the role they had played in the very history they had sought to change, it weighed heavily on all of them. But even in their darkest moments, Zahn's words echoed in their minds. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was still theirs to shape. With renewed purpose, they threw themselves into the rebuilding efforts on their homeworld. They shared the knowledge and technology they had gained from the humans, using it not for war, but for peace. Under their guidance, their civilization rose from the ashes, stronger and more united than ever before. And through it all, the gateway remained. A reminder of where they had been, and a promise of where they could go. For the war had taught them one final lesson, that they were not alone in the universe. There were other worlds out there, other civilizations. And now, thanks to the humans and their incredible invention, they had the means to reach them. Lisra stood before the gateway, the key in her hand. It had been a year since their fateful mission, a year of hard work and harder truths. But they had made it. They had survived. "Are you sure about this?" Rykos asked, standing at her side. His leg had long since healed, though the scars remained. "We don't know what's out there." Lisra smiled. "No, we don't. But isn't that the point of exploring? To discover the unknown." She stepped forward, the key pulsing in anticipation. "The humans gave us this gift for a reason. Not just to understand our past, but to build our future. And that future is out there, waiting for us." With a deep breath, she activated the key. The gateway hummed to life, the portal swirling open like a doorway to the stars. One by one, her team stepped through, ready to face whatever lay beyond. Rykos, ever loyal. Talos, strong and steadfast. And all the others who had fought and bled and survived alongside her. Lisra was the last to go. She paused at the threshold, taking one final look at the world she had helped to save. It wasn't perfect, no world ever was. But it was hers. And she would always fight for it. With a smile, she stepped through the portal, embracing the endless possibilities of a universe waiting to be explored. And so the mission that had begun as a search for a mythical weapon ended as something else entirely, a journey of discovery, not just of the universe, but of themselves. They had set out to find a tool of destruction, and instead found the key to their own salvation. It had been a long road, a hard road. But in the end, it had led them to exactly where they needed to be. To a new beginning, and a future full of hope. The gateway closed behind them, its purpose fulfilled. And somewhere, in a place beyond time and space, Zahn smiled. For he knew, as he had always known, that this was just the beginning. That the real adventure was only just beginning. And he couldn't wait to see where it would lead.